Hi there. In this video, we're going to create one last query by hand using the M query language here in Power Query. And unlike the previous queries that we built, rather than working with simple numbers like adding and subtracting, 5 and 10 and things like that, we're going to have the steps actually work with tables the way that you usually do in Power Query. So this is going to give you a pretty good idea of what Power Query is actually doing every time you hit one of those buttons and add a transformation. So let's go ahead and get started. We're in the letin.xlsx workbook. We're in the query 3 worksheet. We're going to click on this table, which is linked to a query. When you click on it, it should bring up this workbook queries pane. If not, head over to the Power Query tab and click on Show Pane like that. So look for the tab WRY3 raw. It's actually a typo. It should say QRY3 raw, but that's fine. Right click on it and hit Edit. So the way this query works right now is it just grabs the, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and discard and close this. It's just going to grab the data from this table right here. So that's what the query is currently doing. So click on it, right click, edit. And so we've currently got that step, and we're going to add 2 steps by hand. So let's go ahead and head up to View and go to the Advanced Editor. Okay, as before, everything between the /* and the */ is a comment. Power Query ignores all this stuff. These are just notes to ourselves. So here's the actual code that we currently have right now. Currently, there's a let. It says, hey, we're going to define a bunch of steps, and then we're going to pick one as the answer. So we only define one step, and the answer is that step. What we're going to create is this right here. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so our first step is called source, and what it does is it uses the excel.currentWorkbook function to grab something from the current workbook. Don't worry too much about this stuff. We'll deal with it in the next chapters. All you have to know is this step right here grabs the data from that table. So I'm going to hit comma because we're going to define another step. Enter 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces by convention. Our next step we're going to call removed top rows, because that's what we're going to do. So we're going to add a hash or a pound symbol, quotation mark, removed top rows, close quotation mark, because we're done naming that step. And the step is actually going to work on this first step right here, and it's going to it's going to remove the top rows. So we're going to use the table.skip function. So table.skip skips a bunch of rows, open parentheses. Okay, so which table are we going to skip rows on? Well, we're going to skip rows on the table defined here in the first step, or source. Okay, well, how many rows do we want to remove from the top? We want to remove 2. Okay, add another space, close parentheses, and add a comma because we're done defining that step. So we've currently got 2 steps. The first step is called source. It gets the data from that table. The second step takes the data from that table from step 1 and removes the top 2 rows using the table.skip function. Okay, 3, 4 spaces there. The last step is going to be the promoted headers step. So we're going to do a pound symbol, quotation mark, promoted headers. That's the name of the step. Again, we can call it anything we want to. We're just going to call it that. Equals, and we're going to use the table.promote headers function. And that, as you might expect, takes a table and promotes the headers of that table. So what table are we going to promote the headers of? Well, we're going to promote the headers of the table defined in step 2, or removed top rows. So we're going to do a hashtag, open quotation marks, removed top rows. Okay, and there's only one argument for that function, so we're all done. Okay, and finally, we've defined all of our steps. Now the let went from having 1 step to having 3. And for our in, it's no longer going to be source. We could leave it like this, and it would return an answer, but the answer would just be the first step. We actually want the last step, so we're going to delete this. And what the correct answer is, what we want Power Query to return is the step promoted headers. Okay, and that's good. Here's another point where I should add, if I haven't already. The M language and Power Query in general is case sensitive. So here it says see promote headers. If I were to change the H from an uppercase to a lowercase, it would not work. So I have to get that casing right. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit done. And there we go. We've defined our query. So again, here's where we started. We started with the data from the table right here. In the second step, it uses the table.skip function. It takes the table from source and it skips 2 rows. And then in the promoted header step, it takes the table from remove top rows, that one right there, and it promotes the headers of it. Okay, so that's actually how when you're clicking on things, like if we were to add a new transformation, like, oh, I don't know, what's a good one? Let's just add an index column here real easily. If you look at the add index column, it sort of does the same thing. It adds this step. The step is called added index, and it uses the table.addIndex column. It works on the previous step or promoted headers. It calls the column index. It starts at 0, and it goes up by 1 for each row. So that's how, and if you come over here and click on the advanced editor, you can see it's added that step to our query right here. So now we've got 4 steps, and the in calls the very last step. Okay, well, I hope that clears up sort of, or makes a bit more apparent to you what's happening when you click these buttons here in Power Query. And so, you know, it's not just sort of a magical box. You kind of get a sense of what's actually going on underneath the hood when you're writing these queries. Okay, so I think that's it for this section. We're going to cover some more interesting stuff in the next couple sections. So I hope to see you then. Take care.